The Last Trip, Part 1. The bus that was never on the map. The last day of school always felt magical. It was the beginning of freedom. Late night phone calls, endless adventures, and memories that would last forever. Adam had spent months planning one final summer trip with his closest friends before life pulled them in different directions. There was Lily, the cheerful photographer who believed every sunset deserved a picture. Noah, whose jokes could make anyone laugh even on their worst day. Mia, the quiet girl who always carried a novel in her backpack. And Ethan, the fearless one who was always searching for excitement. They decided to travel to an old mountain town that people only described as peaceful, beautiful, and forgotten by time. Early the next morning, they arrived at an old bus station on the edge of the city. It looked strangely abandoned, with faded signboards, rusty benches, and a clock that had stopped moving years ago. Adam checked his phone to make sure they were in the right place, but before he could speak, an elderly ticket seller smiled at them from a tiny wooden booth. Without asking where they were going, he handed each of them a small paper ticket. "These are for the last trip," he said softly. Noah laughed and asked, "Last trip of the day?" The old man looked into his eyes and replied, "No, just the last trip." Before anyone could ask what he meant, an old dark blue bus slowly pulled into the station. It had no route number, no destination written on the front, and no company logo. The doors opened with a loud crack. The driver never looked at them or spoke a single word. Thinking it was just an old local bus, they climbed aboard, joking and teasing each other as if on seats near the back. At first, everything felt normal. They listened to music, played card games, and watched the city disappear behind them. But after nearly 2 hours, Adam noticed something strange. The road outside never changed. There were no towns, no petrol stations, no traffic lights, not even another vehicle. Only an endless forest stretching beneath the grey sky. Had completely lost signal, and when Lily tried using offline maps, the blue location dot had vanished. "That's weird," she whispered. Ethan walked to the front and politely asked the driver how much longer it would take. The driver didn't answer. He didn't even blink. It was as though he hadn't heard at all. An uneasy silence spread across the bus. Suddenly, the vehicle slowed to stop beside a lonely bus stop, standing in the middle of nowhere. There were no houses, no roads leading ways, and no sign of life. Only a single teenage girl stood there holding an old suitcase. She stepped onto the bus without saying a word, her face hidden beneath the hood of her sweater. As she slowly walked past their seats, she stopped beside Adam, looked directly into his eyes, and quietly whispered, "If you want to go home, don't fall asleep." Before Adam could reply, she continued walking toward the back of the bus. Confused, he turned around only a few seconds later, but the last row was completely empty. The mysterious girl had completely vanished without a trace. At that exact moment, the lights inside the bus flickered once, and every ticket in their hands changed. The destination that had been blank only moments before now showed three chilling words: "Welcome to yesterday." Some roads don't lead to new places, they lead back to the memories you tried to leave behind. Part 2. The passenger who knew them all. For several seconds, none of us said a word. Adam stood up and hurried to the back of the bus, convinced the mysterious girl had simply hidden somewhere. But every seat was empty. The suitcase was gone. The back door had never opened, and the other passenger acted as if no one had entered at all. "Did you guys see her?" Adam asked, his voice shaking. Lily nodded immediately. "She stopped right beside you." Ethan frowned. "Then where did she go?" Even Noah, who always found a joke for every situation, couldn't force a smile. Mia quietly looked at the paper ticket in her hand. The blank space where the destination should have been now read, "No way back." One by one, everyone checked their tickets. Every single one had changed before anyone could understand what was happening. The bus lights flickered and an old radio near the driver's seat suddenly turned on by itself. A soft voice filled the bus. "Next stop, regret." Then the radio went silent again. The road outside slowly changed. The thick forest disappeared, replaced by an empty town that looked frozen in time. Every shop was closed, every traffic light blinked yellow, and the streets were completely deserted. It felt as if everyone had disappeared only minutes before they arrived. The bus stopped in the middle of the town without any explanation. This time the driver stood up for the first time since the journey had begun. Without turning around, he quietly said, "10 minutes." It was the first sentence everyone had heard him speak. The doors opened. The five friends stepped outside, expecting to find someone who could explain where they were. Instead, they found silence. As Adam looked around, something caught his attention. Across the street stood an old cafe with a sign hanging above the entrance. His heart skipped a beat. He knew that cafe. It couldn't be possible because it had closed years ago. Slowly he walked inside. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air, and soft music played in the background. Then he saw them sitting at a corner table were his mother and father, younger, happier, laughing together exactly as they had in old family photographs. Adam's breathing became uneven. His father had passed away when he was a child. He hadn't heard his laugh in years. "Dad," he whispered, taking one step forward, but before he could reach the table, Lily grabbed his arm. Tears were streaming down her own face. Across the table, she had spotted her grandmother. She had died the previous summer, smiling warmly if nothing had ever happened. Ethan stood frozen in the doorway, staring at his older brother, while Noah quietly sunk into a chair after seeing the grandfather he had never gotten the chance to say goodbye to. Every one of them was looking at someone they had loved and lost. Then Mia noticed something the others hadn't. None of the people inside the cafe were speaking. They laughed, smiled, and looked alive, but no sound came from their mouths. It was like watching an old movie with the volume turned off. On the wall hung a large clock. Its hands were moving backwards. Mia felt a chill run down her spine. She whispered, "These aren't memories. Something's wrong." At that exact moment, the old bus horn echoed through the empty streets. The driver was calling them back. Adam looked at his father one last time. For a brief second, his father slowly turned towards them, smiled, and gently shook his head, as if warning him not to stay. Adam's heart pounded as he ran out of the cafe with the others. The moment they climbed back onto the bus, the town vanished behind a wall of thick white fog. As the doors closed, the mysterious girl was suddenly sitting in the very last seat again. This time everyone could see her. She looked at the five friends with sad eyes and quietly said, "That was only the first stop. The next one is where people forget who they really are." The bus began moving again. No one dare ask where it was taking them. End of part 2. The hardest journey isn't finding your way home, it's remembering why you left. Part 3. The place where time stood still. No one spoke after the bus pulled away from the silent town. The laughter they had seen only minutes earlier still enjoyed inside their minds, especially Adam's. He couldn't stop thinking about his father. It had looked so real. He wanted to believe it wasn't just an illusion, but the mysterious girl's warning kept repeating in his head. The next stop is where people forget who they really are. The atmosphere inside the bus grew heavier with every passing minute. Outside the windows, the forest slowly disappeared, replaced by a road surrounded by thick white mist. It was impossible to tell whether it was day or night. Adam checked his watch. The second hand had stopped moving. Lily pulled out her phone, but the battery had suddenly dropped from 8% to 1. Then the screen went completely black. Noah tried laughing to ease the tension, but even he admitted something wasn't right. It felt as though the bus had left the real world behind. Without warning, the bus came to another stop. This time there was no town, no station, and no buildings, only a narrow stone path leading into a field filled with thousands of white flowers. In the distance stood a huge mirror, taller than any building they had ever seen. It reflected the sky perfectly yet strangely. None of the five friends could see their own reflections. The driver slowly stood up and, without looking at them, said, 15 minutes, don't touch the mirror. Then he sat down again. Ethan frowned. If he tells us not to touch it, that's exactly what it does. And they slowly walked towards the mirror. As they came closer, the surface began to ripple like water. One by one, images appeared inside it. Adam saw himself 5 years into the future, wearing an expensive suit, standing alone in a luxurious apartment. He had everything he once dreamed of: success, money, and fame. But his phone was filled with unanswered messages from the very friends standing beside him now. Lily saw herself becoming a famous travel photographer, visiting beautiful places all over the world, but every picture showed her smiling alone. Noah saw himself achieving his dream career, yet he laughed less than he ever had before. Ethan saw himself living in another country, watching birthdays and family gatherings through a screen. Mia quietly stared at her own reflection. She saw herself sitting in a crowded cafe, surrounded by people, yet writing in her diary, wondering why she had never told Adam how she truly felt. None of them spoke. The mirror wasn't showing monsters or ghosts, it was showing futures where they had achieved their dreams but lost the people who had once made those dreams worth chasing. A cold breeze swept across the field, and the mysterious girl suddenly appeared beside the mirror. This time she wasn't wearing her hood, and for the first time they could clearly see her face. She looked no older than they were, but there was a sadness in her eyes that made her seem much older. This place doesn't show your future, she said quietly. It shows the future you'll have if you forget what matters most. Adam looked at her and finally asked the questions everyone had been thinking. Who are you? The girl smiled faintly before answering. I was a passenger on this bus, just like you. Before anyone could ask another question, the mirror cracked from top to bottom with a deafening sound. The ground beneath their feet began to shake, and the bus horn echoed through the valley once again. The girl took a step backward, her expression suddenly filled with fear. You have to leave, she whispered. They have found you. Far beyond the field, dark figures slowly emerged from the fog, walking silently towards them, and this time they were not alone. End of part 3. Sometimes the greatest danger isn't losing your way, it's losing the people who gave you a reason to keep going. Part 4. The station that didn't exist. The dark figures moved slowly through the thick fog, their footsteps perfectly in sync, yet no sound came from them. Adam grabbed Lily's hand, and the five friends ran as fast as they could back towards the bus. Just before the doors closed, Adam looked over his shoulder. The mysterious girl was still standing beside the broken mirror. She wasn't running, she simply smiled at him. A sad, peaceful smile, as if she already knew she wasn't coming with them. The bus pulled away, disappearing into the mist, and within seconds the field, the mirror, and the shadowy figures had vanished. No one spoke. Every heartbeat seemed louder than the engine. Adam couldn't stop thinking about the girl. Who was she? Why did she kept helping him? Why had she called herself a passenger? After what felt like hours, the bus slowed down once again. Outside the window stood an old railway station surrounded by empty tracks. The station looked abandoned, but a sign hanging above the entrance read, "Final stop." Ethan frowned. "We're on a bus, so why are we stopping at a train station?" No one had an answer. The driver stood up, turned towards them for the very first time, and quietly said, "This is where every journey ends. Choose carefully." His face looked strangely familiar, but before Adam could recognize him, the driver stepped off the bus and disappeared into the darkness. The five friends entered the station together. Inside, hundreds of old suitcases were stuck against the walls, each with a name written on a faded tag. Adam found one with his own name. Lily found hers. So did Noah, Ethan, and Mia. Confused, they opened the suitcases one by one. Inside were not clothes or belongings. Inside each suitcase contained forgotten moments from their lives. Adam found the birthday card his father had written before he passed away, a card he had spent years searching for. Lily discovered the first photograph she had ever taken with her late grandmother. Noah found the toy car his little brother had given him before moving to another country. Ethan held the medal he had thrown away after believing he wasn't good enough. Mia carefully unfolded an old letter from her mother telling her how proud she had always been of her. Tears filled every one of their eyes. It felt as though the station had collected every memory they had once lost. Then a loud announcement echoed through the empty station. "Attention passengers, the last train will depart in 5 minutes." A train slowly arrived on the platform. It was covered in silver light, and through its window they could see smiling faces waiting inside. Parents, grandparents, old friends, loved ones they had lost. They all looked happy, as if inviting them to come abroad. At the same time, another path appeared beside the platform. It led to a small wooden door glowing with warm sunlight. There were no voices beyond it, no familiar faces, only the quiet promise of returning home. Noah looked at the train and whispered, "If we get on, we could see them again." Lily shook her head, tears rolled down her cheeks. But would we ever come back? Before anyone could answer, the mysterious girl appeared one last time. She walked towards Adam and gently placed his paper ticket back into his hand. The words had changed again. This time they read, "Every goodbye is a choice." She looked at the five friends and softly said, "You can stay with the past or return to the people who are still waiting for you." The train door slowly opened. The wooden door behind them cracked open as sunlight poured into the station. They had only 1 minute left to choose. End of part 4. Sometimes the hardest journey is choosing between the memories you miss and the future that still needs you. Part 5. The Way Home. The station fell silent. The train doors stood open, and from inside came familiar voices calling their names. Adam could hear his father laughing, the same laugh he had missed since childhood. Lily saw her grandmother smiling with open arms. Noah's grandfather waved at him proudly. Ethan heard his brother calling his name, and Mia saw her mother holding out her hand. For one heartbreaking moment, none of them wanted to move. They had spent years wishing for just one more conversation, one more hug, one more chance to say the words they never got to say. The train promised all of that. But then Adam remembered something his father had always told him. The people who truly love you never wants you to stop living because of them. He slowly looked away from the train and turned towards the small wooden door glowing with warm sunlight. "I think," he whispered, his voice breaking, "they are not asking us to stay. They are asking us to keep going. Tears filled Lily's eyes as she nodded. One by one, the five friends stepped away from the train. Behind them, the smiling faces never looked disappointed. Instead, they smiled even wider, as if they were proud of the choice. The mysterious girl watched them quietly for the first time. The sadness disappeared from her face. You finally understood, she said. Adam looked at her. Who are you? She smiled gently. Years ago, I couldn't let go. I stayed on this journey, hoping I could relive the past forever. But every year, I help others choose the future instead. Every time someone finds the courage to live, a little part of me is finally free. As she finished speaking, the paper ticket in Adam's hand slowly turned into tiny golden pieces of light that disappeared into the air. At the same moment, the train doors closed and the station around them began to fade. The girl gave them one last smile before she vanished like morning mist beneath the rising sun. The five friends walked through the wooden door together. A bright light surrounded them, and suddenly Adam felt someone gently shaking his shoulder. He opened his eyes and found himself sitting on the old blue bus. The driver was standing beside him. End of the line, he said with a smile. Adam looked around in confusion. Lily, Noah, Ethan, and Mia were waking up too, just as confused as he was. Outside the window was a beautiful mountain town they had planned to visit all along. The journey had taken only 3 hours. Their phones had full signal again. The sky was clear and everything looked completely normal. Was it a dream? Noah asked. Nobody answered. As they stepped off the bus, Adam noticed the old ticket still folded inside his jacket pocket. He slowly opened it. The words "No way back" had disappeared. In their place was a simple sentence: the greatest journey isn't escaping your past, it's learning to carry it without letting it stop your future. Adam smiled quietly and slipped the ticket back into his wallet, where he would keep it for the rest of his life. The five friends spent the next 3 days exploring mountains, watching sunrises, laughing around campfires, and taking hundreds of photographs. They realized that the greatest adventure wasn't the mysterious bus or the impossible station, it was having people beside them who made every ordinary moment unforgettable. Years later, after college had ended and life had taken them to different cities, they still met every summer. They always traveled together, no matter how busy life became. Before every trip, Adam would take the old paper ticket from his wallet, smile to himself, and remember the lesson that had changed his life forever. Sometimes the last trip isn't the end of a journey, it's the beginning of the life you were always meant to live. The end. Don't spend your life chasing yesterday. The people who love you most are waiting to see who you'll become tomorrow. Thank you.